absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for coming this afternoon. Go ahead and take our seats, and folks will kind of trickle in as clinics let out. For those of y'all I don't know, I think I know everybody. My name's Brent Finkley, and I have the greatest of pleasures and honor to be able to welcome a dear friend and mentor, Cathy Schanzer, to be joining us today. Cathy is an extremely incredible woman that you all will hear all about her work, all of her passions over the past 35 years of working around the world, but particularly in Africa. She graduated in 1987?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's about that. It's approximately there. From the University of Texas.
See, they're out there counting on their fingers.
Right. All right, well, in general, yeah, in the last, no. From the University of Texas, went on to do her ophthalmology residency at Baylor University, and was actually under the tutelage of Dr. Payton himself while she was there, and he was head of the department. And was co-residence, right, with Dr. Gotch?
John Gotch.
John Gotch.
He was a year ahead of me.
Yeah, who will be joining us later today as well. So
excited to see him.
Very excited. But Dr. Schanzer has done incredible work throughout Africa, but particularly her work in Sierra Leone that spanned the past 23 years at the Southern Eye Clinic in Soratu, Sierra Leone. She is joined by her husband and other half, Tom Lewis, who just creates the greatest environment wherever he is, and is a wonderful person as well. Hopefully you all get a chance to meet him over the course of the next few hours. But welcome, everybody, and thanks so much, Cathy, for your time here.
Thank you. I am absolutely so honored to be able to do this. And you know, when I was looking back at some of the other topics and realized that people had talked about fungal keratitis and all these other amazing things and the research that they had been doing. And I'm going to take a totally different approach. So you're going to hear more about my spiritual kind of inward journey, how I feel that God has called me to this from the time I was a kid all the way up to now that I'm a great-grandmother. No, that's not true. I'm really just barely there. Anyway, but so this is our logo. And we put this on all of our marketing material and everything that we use to try to raise money. It is the face of Africa, and it's almost a little bit eerie, but I think that you can see the continent of Africa on the face, and then the little yellow asterisk is Sierra Leone. So it may look like a tear, but it's not. It's actually Sierra Leone. But I will be talking to you about all those many years of mission experience. I will be telling you about what it's like to set up an eye clinic in the bush when you have neither money, equipment, supplies, nothing, except the grace of God to lead you to all of this. And so I think you'll enjoy that. We'll show a few slides of some of the past fellows that have been with us, and obviously we have to tell some secret stories, only to make it interesting. And I'll show a few pathology slides, and then we'll end with kind of some more personal things as well. So I would like to begin with a prayer because, as I mentioned, this is my spiritual journey, the way that God has called me to do this. So if we could all just quiet ourselves for a moment. Heavenly Father, we come before you to give you glory, praise, and honor. I ask you to guide my words and the stories that I tell, but guide everything that I do to enlighten all of the wonderful people that are here. Help them to open their own hearts and minds to your will, because all that we do for the greater glory. We know that you have given our talents, you've given us all of our treasures, you've given us everything that we have. None of it have we gained on our own, but only with your graces have we gained it. I ask you to guide me through all of this, and I ask you to guide the people who are here listening. Ask all of this in Jesus' name, amen. So I first met David Payton when I was a medical student at the University of Texas, because in the medical center, University of Texas and Baylor were on the same campus. And so I went over across the street to Baylor. I was at UT. I went across the street and met David Payton and told him how interested I was in ophthalmology. He was so amazingly nice. So imagine this stupid little medical student comes over, walks across the street. Hey, I'm interested in your program. He was so kind. He was so gentle. He was so sweet. He was just like a hero to me. And then once I got accepted at Baylor, then he was there for the first year of my residency, and then we had a different chairman after that. But I truly do admire him. He's such a visionary, and he was just amazing through. Oh, God bless you. Thank you. Amazing throughout that my whole time there. So here's my group. Our first year residents. Obviously, we're just trying to get into a little bit of trouble. But if you want to know how to say Wills Eye Hospital in Mende, it's Nuambawa Hali Wiwu. So y'all can all practice that now while you're sitting out there, but that's the Mende word. And I had to get a little bit of help with that from Sampia, and I'll tell you more about him in a minute. So you're probably wondering now, how did Wills Eye Hospital and Southern Eye Clinic in Sarabu ever get hooked up together? Well, I'm going to tell you that. So I was on a panel at the Women in Ophthalmology in 2016, and it was obviously global ophthalmology. And at the break, someone came up to me, and maybe that person's here, I'm not even sure, but asked if we would take people from Wills Eye into Sarabu, into our village. Now, we established our clinic in 2006, and I'll tell you more about that as well. But so here, it's been in existence at that point for 10 years. So I was so excited. Here's this no-name from Sarabu who's being offered from this wonderful institution of Wills Eye that their fellows would come to our village. I mean, God is so good. Thank you, Lord, for sending us these people, because I was it. I was the person in the clinic, and I was the person in the operating room, and I was the person everywhere. I mean, the days in the beginning were usually 18 to 20-hour days, doing as much as we could to help as many people as we could. So I just felt so blessed to have this offer, and you guys have been with us. You have been total blessing in our lives. So Wills Eye stepped up to the bar and offered that the fellows would come with us, and I was just so thankful for that. But I'm going to run through the fellows that have been with us, and I'm grateful for all of you. You've all been such a godsend. And like I said, I feel that God has been so involved in all of this and helping us to set up the eye clinic, but also just for each of you to remember that the talents that you have, while we here in this developed country, we always tend to think, well, I worked hard, so I got here by myself. Well, I worked hard, so I got here, and I worked hard. We really didn't. All of our talents have come from God. Granted, He expects us to use the talents He gives us and the graces He gives us, but just remember deep in your heart to thank the Lord for the talents that you have. They didn't come from you. God gave them to you, and God wants you to use them, and He wants you to use them well. And in your own heart, I just want you to feel the fire of the Holy Spirit that God has called you into this realm of medicine. So I think you all recognize this handsome dude. Christos was our first fellow. Amazing to have a wonderful surgeon, a great teacher, and there's Suzette with him. He's teaching us all about how to use our iPhones. But he did teach us some other things, like how to go out on a boat and how to fish. This is not just all global ophthalmology, okay? And then he showed us how to dress properly in the village. Quite dapper, you might admit. Wonderful surgeon. Even had to use the microscope that didn't work, so he taped his flashlight torch onto the microscope and used it, because I was using the one that worked. Seniority counts, okay? And then when he got out of line, I had to put him in timeout. So here he is in the missionary, just sitting there, all forlorn. But he did great. We appreciated having him, and he was wonderful. Brent came next, and it was so wonderful to have him. He learned many things while he was there, like how do you carry things on your head. Now, he still has one hand holding onto the box, so that's really not fair. Because any of you have ever seen the women in villages like this, they have a baby strapped to their backs, they have something on their head, and they've got something in both arms. And they're headed out to the farm to work out there. Meanwhile, the men are sitting on the sides not doing anything. The women work so hard. It's absolutely amazing. But it is a male-dominated field. So even though they would watch me run between the eye clinic and the operating room, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, they would turn to Tom and they would say, "Oh, Mr. Tom, you bring a very fine woman." Well, I totally lost my identity there. I became Mr. Tom's very fine woman. God has a way of making you humble. I'm humble to do this talk, but he really made me humble with that. We also have the dress code here. I think he looks great there. And also carrying a phaco machine on his head. He luckily used both hands there because we use phaco a lot on the children. We see a lot of children that have cataracts, and because their cataracts are so soft, there's no point in trying to do an M6 with them. And you want to keep the incisions as small as you can. So here, Brent and Tom are looking at monkey meat. We're in the market, and they're trying to decide, should I try this monkey meat? Tom's all right. He's way into it. Brent's looking at it, not so sure. After he eats it, he kind of wonders, should I have done that? But he lived to tell. Brent also met with Dr. Vandy, who at that time was the director of the eye care program. He has since been booted upstairs, and we now have a different director, Dr. Jalika, and she's been very supportive as well. And then in the operating room, big help. All of the fellows are so talented. I'm so grateful to every single one of you guys and girls because it's just been such a help. It's just been so wonderful. And you all teach me so much and teach everyone there so much. So here's Brent doing surgery and then visiting with people out in the hallway. And of course, he looks like he's one of my sons, which he could be, actually. Now, here's the only thing about Brent I just did not understand. How do you get all the way to Sarabu, Sierra Leone, never having eaten a Twinkie? I mean, did his parents not understand that you always give your kids Twinkies? The preservatives and the carcinogens in a Twinkie, I mean, they last forever. So, okay, Brent had never had one, so we had to make him taste one. But he decided to try it with red wine, which is a little flaky anyway. So he's there trying it, and you can see he's still questioning whether or not he made the right decision. And here I think he finally accepted that he did. So here we are together with our next fellow. She did so great. Gosh, it was great to have Suzette there. Great surgeon, great with the babies. Oh my gosh, because we do see so many kids there. But we obviously wore that poor woman out. She worked so hard. I am so grateful that you were there. And this is one of my all-time favorite pictures because we're all in the mosque and they're sitting in the front with the men. Now, they put me in the back with the women. I'm not sure why. But anyway, I think the expression on your face, Suzette, is just the holiest thing. It's like you and God are connecting, or you and Allah, as the case may be. But it's so beautiful, and it just, it touches your heart, and you just know that that God is involved with all of this, and it's just so wonderful to see this. So I love that picture, and then, of course, working in the clinic, and then in the operating room, and then here we are with Dr. Jalika is right next to Suzette there, and then as we were leaving, we met up with at the bishop's, and then Eliza came next. Now, she looks quite handsome in her African attire, but our parish priest decided she was really the prophet Elisha, and he kept calling her that. And he would make her come up to the front, and he would make her take up collections, and he would do all these crazy things. And she was such a good sport about it. I mean, she was great in the operating room, she was great with the patients, but she was great to put up with Father Ua in this particular situation. So here she is working hard in the operating room, excellent surgeon, great with the patients, a blessing to have her there. Her only downfall is she was not so good at soccer. We're still working on that. So this is how she recovered from her soccer, pretty worn out. You'll see this recliner in a lot of photos because everybody loves this recliner. Eliza working in the clinic, and then Eliza recovering after the clinic. So we do tend to drink a lot of wine when we're there. I mean, that's sort of the common theme, but nonetheless, we survived. So here she is with the team that was there working with her. And then John and Santi come next. So you can see John is in the recliner and then being fitted for his African attire. And Santi also is getting fit for his. And here we are, we're the Pumui family. So Pumui means white. So we're the white family. So all of us are all dressed up in our African stuff to go into church. So if you're a black family, you're Nulele, and if you're a white family, you're Pumui. So we were the Pumui family. But here, John and Santi are talking to Francis. Francis is our medical student. So we've supported Francis for a number of years. He first came to us as a medical officer, so he had to rotate through OB-GYN and ophthalmology and all this kind of stuff. And once he got into ophthalmology, he loved it and asked, could he do a second rotation? Well, sure, of course. We always can use help. And then after that second rotation, he said, I would love to go to medical school. So we're supporting him in medical school right now. And you guys have helped with Francis as well, and hopefully will help us find a residency program for him. And then he'll come back, and as he says, oh, Dr. Cathy, when you are too old and feeble, I will take your place. So I don't know when that's going to happen. I mean, maybe Francis knows, but I don't know. Anyway, and excellent surgeons again. We so appreciate the help that we got from all of you guys. John was great. Both here he's actually treating one of our patients that had an infection. And we always have to model our African attire. This is another one of my favorite pictures actually in the mosque. So that's the chief imam in between John and I. The chief imam, when we first started going, you know, a woman is not supposed to touch the chief imam. And he actually allowed me to do his cataract surgery. And it's like the floodgates opened. I mean, guineas started pouring in because Dr. Cathy had done the chief imam's surgery. And he did beautifully. Now, this was so many years ago, and all of you people probably have never heard of this, but the Array multifocal intraocular lens had been out, and we had like 600 of those donated. So I asked him if he wanted me to put this in his eye. Well, all he needs to see is what he reads in his religious stuff, and then if the rebels are coming. You know, of course, I tell him about glare and halos. Like, what are you going to have glare and halos? You don't have street lights. You don't have automobiles. You don't have any of that. But we've been trained so much here in the States to be careful about those issues. But this is, I think, is just such a beautiful image of showing how important it is that our fellows have the relationship, not just on the religious side or on the medical side, but all sides, with all the people. And here's John with one of our favorite little kids. He's a handicap, and you'll see a video of him shortly. Just an adorable little kid, because we have lots of handicapped children as well. And had it not been for John and Santi to help Mamadou get this equipment going, because I couldn't figure out how to make it go, these guys worked and worked and worked and finally got this stuff going. So I'm very appreciative of that. You guys are just fabulous, just great. Now, one other thing you need to know about Santi is he has a secret card trick. And you're going to have to corner him at some point and get him to show you the secret card trick. He may have forgotten it already. Santi, you still know it?
I'm literally walking through the steps in my head right now. I forgot it.
So anyway, get him to show you the card trick. Get him to cook for you. All those are good things. Here we have our we cook kind of in the back of the little house that we stay in. So I have the parlor area with the famous recliner, and then we cook back there. But sometimes it takes extra people. So Santi's just helping out with the cooking. And here he is speaking in the mosque. And it's so beautiful because we're invited into the mosque on each trip for them to pray over us and for us to pray with them, for us to express our our gratitude and our thankfulness that we've been able to be involved with this and that they've been part of our journey as well. And so you can see, obviously, he's enjoying this, and Tom's sitting back there listening to him, and I'm, of course, back with the women. But anyway, it's still a male-dominated group, and I'll just deal with that. And then in surgery, I did an excellent job. It was so wonderful to have such great surgeons and to have so much help. So John and Santi and Dr. Anna, myself, and then Mohammed was doing some surgery as well. And then they're leading the parade for one of our talent shows. Of course, you know, Santi's got his beer and John's got his iPhone. Anyway, we're leading this particular parade. There's always dancing for the talent shows, and I'll tell you more about some of the community activities shortly. So you'll get to know a little bit more about those as well. And here's Santi doing surgery. These monitors we set up, and they're really helpful. So if you just want to kind of glance over what's going on, you can see. The problem is that we don't have any recording capabilities, and we've been talking about that with the guys here as well. And then Santi and Mamadou. Mamadou is our person who does all the A scans and the keratometry and calculates the IOLs. And years ago, when I was first teaching him all of this, I was trying to teach him about validation criteria and how important it was that he watch the outcomes and be sure that what he aimed for is what we got. And so he comes to me and goes, Doc, I'm so concerned. I aimed for plano in this person, and the patient is a minus 0.25. Gosh, if my techs in the United States had that level of trying to follow their outcomes, I would be in hog heaven. But he's very conscientious, and a wonderful guy, and obviously you can see that he and Santi hit it off well. As in every program, you always have times when the power goes out, so you can see that John's holding the flashlight, Santi's doing the exam, and I'm being the scribe, and it just happens. That's what life is. And here's Santi enjoying the famous recliner. Everybody gets to enjoy their recliner one time or another. It's just so comfortable. It's just in the perfect place. And we temperature control this particular parlor just because sometimes it's so oppressive everywhere else. And you can just come here and have a snack and then go back to the OR, go back to the clinic or wherever you are that's working. And then both John and Santi were helping Mohammed, who is our cataract technician. And so many people have helped him to hone in on his skills as well. And we're just so, so much gratitude, so much thankfulness that you guys have helped us in so many different ways. Now, Santi, if I had known he was going to teach us how to smoke cigars, I wouldn't have gone all the way to Cuba to learn how to smoke cigars. But anyway, he was teaching us that. He bought an instrument. He and Dr. Anna got very interested in the musical instruments. And then here's our team all together. So it was great to have, this is our team for January, and it was great to have this team because this is the most surgeons we ever had. And I'll show you the contrast in, years ago to this particular trip. All right, now, you gotta pay careful attention to because right here is John, and over here is Santi. Okay, so start placing your bets. Who's going for John? All right. Nobody's voted for you, John. Hey, Christos is. All right. All right, who wants to vote for Santi? Santi's voting for himself. All right. Here we go. Let me get this baby going. So we do work very, very hard when we're there, but we also have great fun when we're there. It's just Sarabu, Sierra Leone. It's just so much a part of our of our lives together, of our family, of people that we love and we care for. So what I'm going to jump into next is really my story, kind of how I got started in this, sort of the how I felt that the Holy Spirit was guiding me and that God was calling me to do this. Our early history, you see me just sitting there reading to the kids because we always had things break down early on. And the books that I'm using are ones that Bobby Osher had actually made. For a while, you may know that he was making children's books and the proceeds were going for humanitarian efforts. And so he gave me some to read to the kids. because the kids up to this point had not been really exposed to education, and nobody was reading to them. And so it was great to read to them. So this got snapped, and he keeps this on the back door of his office, and he's been very supportive of the work that I've done. So here I am as a kid, 3rd grade, and I heard a Maryknoll missionary talk about mission work. And I thought, my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what God wants me to do. I mean, I felt it into my most innermost soul, into my gut, into every core of my fiber. I knew this is what I was going to do, was to be a missionary. I wasn't sure what that meant because I was in the 3rd grade, but it wasn't until I got into high school and I entered in the science fair, and I won in the science fair. And one of the things that I was awarded was this amazing opportunity to work in Dr. Michael DeBakey's research lab in between my junior and senior year of high school. So here I am, this high school student from Hitchcock, Texas, only known for Schanzer Supermarket, which is where we shop at Schanzer's and save. I used to stock groceries and carry out groceries, and that's how I grew up. But here I was now in Michael DeBakey's lab and learning how to prep the animals and watch him put in artificial hearts and watch him sew in valves. And I was in such awe over this. You know, it was like my future was sealed, that I was going to be a missionary and I was going to be a medical missionary. And I was just so grateful that God was just laying this out for me and saying, okay, keep following me, keep listening to me. I'm calling you, I'm telling you, just pay attention. And so I was thinking, well, this is great. I'll be a medical missionary. I don't want to get married. I don't want to have children. This is perfect. I thought I had it all worked out, but the Holy Spirit kind of worked out differently. So Tom and I met at a Catholic student retreat, and he went home from that retreat saying, I told my roommate I met the woman I'm going to marry. The only problem is I wouldn't go out with him because I really felt that I was called to be a single medical missionary. So for a year he asked me out, and then finally he inflicted Catholic guilt. He said, look, I've been asking you out for a year, you owe me a date. So I said, okay, I'll go out with you if I never have to see your face again. And so literally he shows up with a boat. Now, ladies, if someone's going to sweep you off their feet, do they show up with a dirty old boat? Well, Tom Lewis did, and I fell for it. And so we went fishing, and I caught about 6 dozen fish because Tom didn't know I had 5 brothers, and I'd been fishing since I was a kid. I grew up on the Gulf Coast, and so we caught all these fish, and then we actually ended up being separated. He went to Dallas, and I stayed in Houston, but we started to get more and more serious, and we started talking about, okay, if we get married, I want to adopt children, because I had read this book, this amazing book, 19 Steps Up the Mountain, about this family that adopted all these kids. And so we actually did adopt our first group while I was doing my residency, and then a few years later adopted a second group. So that's why you see so many kids in that picture and why we have so many grandkids. So all this time I'm feeling the Holy Spirit saying, you got to do it. You got to do it. It's time for you to do your mission work. I've been preparing you all this time, and so at this point we had the first 3 kids at home, and I had no idea of how to go about this. I mean, you guys are so fortunate because you've got your global program here, and you can get into it in so many different ways. But we didn't have those opportunities way back when. So I opened up the Academy's book. I'm real good about opening up books. It's sort of like when we adopted. We opened up the phone book and we saw Christian Child Health Foundation. Sounds good to me. Okay, let's go there. We're always going by the seat of our pants. We just say a few prayers, jump in, and we figure God's going to work it out. So we looked in the Academy book, and there was this program called Focus, and it was monitored by a guy in Chicago, and he said, absolutely, you can go. I've got an opening in February of 1988. And I said, great, who's going? Whoever you want. No, you don't understand. I've never done this before. What do I need to bring? Whatever you need. I said, I don't know what I need. I don't know what's there. I don't know anything. He goes, well, there's nothing there. So you're not helping me a lot. So it's the same sort of thing. Tom and I prayed about it and decided, okay, if God calls you to it, God will see you through it. So that's exactly what we did. Now, I had a technician that was sort of dating this guy who had an office in Houston and one in Lagos, Nigeria. And so his secretary agreed to meet us at the Lagos airport, which was, again, a godsend. So we go to the airport with boxes of supplies, because we're stupid. We don't know that they're not going to take all these boxes. We're standing there expecting them to take these boxes because it's supplies. It's medical supplies. So of course you're going to take it. And we got all these papers and stuff. And so finally the woman says, I'll be right back. And she leaves and we're looking at each other. What are we going to do? Because first she said, well, that's going to cost you at least $1,000. We don't have $1,000. And so she comes back and she goes, okay, we'll do it. And so they took all this stuff. And it's like, God's just laying it out there for us, just taking care of us all the way. It was just so amazing. And so we do get as far as Lagos, and Barbara, the secretary, meets us. But before we even get to her, there's all these like 12-year-olds who have machine guns. And Tom's looking at me, he's going, we're going to die. We're going to die. No, we're not going to die. I'm not going to die. It's not going to happen yet. God's not going to let this happen yet. So she starts yelling at everybody, and she gets our supplies by, and she says, now, tomorrow, when you catch the plane to Calabar, they sell more boarding passes than there are seats. So when I tell you to run, just start running to the plane and get on it, because as soon as you get on it, you're home free. They'll just lift up the armrails, and 5 people sit where 3 people normally would sit, and it's hot as Hades. And so the plane lands, and we're running to it, and Tom's going, wow, look at all that oil leaking. No, don't look that way. Look this way. And then he goes, well, but look, those tires are bald. And in Tom's background, his father is an auto mechanic, so he knows all these things. I'm like, don't look that way. Look this way. We're going to die. We're going to die. We're just huffing and puffing. We get on the plane, and of course, the temperature's 110, and they serve hot tea, and we're just dying. It's so hot. But we get as far as Calabar, and that's where the nuns pick us up, and we gather all our boxes together, and we get, like 5 minutes later, we're at the first stop, where these 12-year-olds have machine guns. Again, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die. No, we're not going to die. And the nuns get out, and they start screaming at these teenagers, and that's when we sort of thought that the guys are going to, end us. But we did ultimately make it to the little eye clinic in the back. It's at the Mercy Hospital. They had these signs all over the place that the American eye doctors would be coming into Mercy Hospital to treat all kind of eye problems, whatever that means. And so we just had lots of patients to see, but we didn't have a lot of supplies. We didn't have a lot of anything. Now, this is back in the days when you did mostly extra caps. Some we did with loupes, some we did with a microscope. But the funny thing was that if they did not want an intraocular lens. So the deal was that if they wore aphakic spectacles, that meant the American eye doctor had done their surgery. So they were so excited to walk around with these really thick glasses, and we kept saying, no, we can make your life so much better. Let us put this in, No, we can't do that. So we did as much surgery as we can, but it was so slow. Everything was slow. It just moved so slow. We were short on everything, and it was hot, as you can imagine. So here we are, youngsters in Nigeria. We met with the local bishop there, and then started running into things that I really wasn't too sure of how to handle this, because I was only just out of my residency, and it's not like you see this stuff day to day. So I sent somebody down to the market to get me a razor blade, because I couldn't find anything that looked like a dermatome, and made a skin graft. This kid actually ended up doing fairly well. The unfortunate things are stuff like this. So the traditional healers, and those of you who've been out have probably run into this, the traditional healers had told this guy to put sugar cubes in his eyes, and he ultimately ended up with this kind of a panophthalmitis. Everything was infected. He was blind bilaterally. There wasn't much we could do. But again, the traditional healers, that's what they do, and you really can't badmouth them. I mean, you really can't speak against them. There's a kind of a political thing, you have to be real careful with what you're doing there because you don't want them to get mad at you coming. And so it has to be very carefully dealt with. The nuns and the nurses were all great here. And here we are, Tom's in his scrubs. Don't you think those are cute? Look at those legs. Tom would frequently have to help carry the patients into the OR and hold the flashlight for me. And so had I not had him there, I would not have been able to do as much as we did. And we didn't get to do that much because it was a short trip, limited supplies. And so after Nigeria, we joined the Volunteers in Mission, which is a Methodist group. And the Volunteers in Mission, they're so amazingly organized. And it was so great to be with them that we did a number of trips with them. And wherever they needed the I-team, that's where we would jump in. And this particular one was in Zimbabwe, and I was trying to do some skills transfer there, but Zimbabwe and Mozambique. And one of the people that was on the Volunteers in Mission trip with us was a native Sierra Leonean, Sam Pia, and I'll tell you more about him in a minute. But Sam had asked, when the war is over, would you come to my country? So ultimately, when the war is over, we did go to Sierra Leone. And here's Sam. So Sam, because he had lived in Sierra Leone and he desperately wanted to go back, he became a very close friend of ours and still is a close friend. He actually was born in Sierra Leone in 1948. He had his appendix removed in 1958 by Lowell Guess. Some of you may know that name because he set up the Kissy Eye Hospital in Freetown. But he started out as a general surgeon. And after doing general surgery for a while, realized that cataract's the #1 cause of reversible blindness. And it was then that he came back to the United States, learned how to do cataract surgery, and then went back, set up an eye clinic in Nigeria, and set up the Kissy Eye Hospital in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And that's when we started to go, is when Sam, our friend, who was born in Sierra Leone, asked us to come. But it was interesting that Dr. Guess had taken Sam's appendix out when he was a kid, and I had met Dr. Guess through the academy in the global ophthalmology section. And, it's like those tapestries that are so beautiful on one side, but if you turn them over, you see all those knots and everything. Well, that's kind of how this was, because Sam knew Dr. Guess, and I knew Dr. Guess, and we knew Sam. And so anyway, Sam moved to the U.S. in 1986. We became friends, and it was through the Volunteers in Mission that we were involved in Sierra Leone. Sam's history is such that he was involved with the movie The Amistad, which had to do with a lot of the slave trades. So Sam became a Mende coach for this movie, got to meet Spielberg, was out in California. A couple of his kids were the slaves on the ship. And so his history is very embedded into Sierra Leone. And it was back in 1839 when his past relative was involved in all of trying to stop all the slave trade. So here we are now into Sierra Leone. So we've kind of worked our way into more present time. You can see on the here that Sierra Leone is this little country right here. It is 7 million people, one of the poorest nations in Africa. Its name means Lion Mountains, and it's because when the thunderstorms would come through and hit the mountains, it would sound like lions. And so it got that name of Lion Mountains. And if you think about where the hurricanes start, they start right there in that area of West Africa, around Sierra Leone, and then they start building as they come over to our part of the world. 1791 is when it was established by freed slaves and became a British colony, which is why they speak English there, and makes it easy for me because you already heard my Mende is pretty bad. And gained their independence in 61. Unfortunately, from 91 to 2002, they had that terrible rebel war. You may have seen the movie Blood Diamonds. So that was a horrible, terrible, terrible rebel war that occurred during then. And went to 2002. Came from Liberia because Charles Taylor had come down from Liberia, and he's a war criminal, so he's not around anymore. but there were millions of victims during this time. And it was amazing because when we started going to Freetown, we'd get on the ferry from the Lungi airport to go across the bay, and initially all of the mountains were as black as they could be because the entire infrastructure was destroyed. There's no lights, no electricity, no fires, no anything. You couldn't see anything. And it was amazing with time how we'd see a little spot here and a little spot there and a little spot here and a little spot there, where the country was slowly trying to rebuild. But when we got into the light of day, we could actually see the displacement camps. There were blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks of these white tents that had all these displaced people that were either displaced because they had no place to live, or they were dismembered because of the rebels, or they were the boy soldiers they were trying to rehabilitate. And it was just so sad that this had occurred, but all these people were just caught in these big white tents. And if you tried to drive through the city, all you saw were these poor people who had no hope in their face. They were just sort of moving like little robots. And it broke your heart because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know where to go. There was no place to go except the displacement camps. So it was very, very, very difficult for them. So many victims, so many of these people, when the rebels would come through, remember the rebels were oftentimes on drugs, and they would come through and they would ask, do you want a long sleeve shirt or a short sleeve shirt? And then they would dismember them one or the other. And so you can see on this slide how they've been dismembered. They would find a pregnant woman and bet on whether the pregnant woman had a male child or a female child, cut open the belly, and then leave the mother and the baby to die. It was a horribly brutal war, and the infrastructure was destroyed, and so many people were harmed during this time. This is the remnants of the little hospital that we had, and we didn't have, but it was there in Sarabo before we even got there. And when the Archbishop, and we walked through this with the Archbishop, he just cried because he saw these porcelain sinks that had been there, and he saw tiles that had been in this beautiful hospital. It was like a medical center, and it was a maternity center, and so many people came here, and the rebels just came through and totally destroyed this hospital. Well, the Kissy Eye Hospital was established by Lowell Guess, and those of you who never met him, he has passed away now, was just an amazing man. We worked at the Kissy Eye Hospital from 2000 to 2005. Again, that was all through the Volunteers in Mission, and this hospital was established by him. He was born in 1922 and became a Methodist deacon, raised 6 kids on the mission field. His wife was a nurse. And as I mentioned, he came back to the U.S., learned how to do cataract surgery, and had taken Sam's appendix out, and then came back to the U.S. to learn cataract surgery. But he established that Kissy Eye Hospital in 1984, and he and I became friends along the way, and he would give me supplies to take to Kissy, and I'd give him stuff to take, and we'd go back and forth. But an amazing man, he was so kind, and he was so gentle, and such a strong faith in God. I mean, it was so beautiful to watch him, so soft-spoken, just a wonderful contribution to the whole mission field. And here we are at one of the meetings where we were all together. So after we worked at the Kissy Eye Hospital for a while, I tracked down Dr. Teresa Ganda because there were so many patients coming through with just this horrible iritis, uveitis. And I thought, well, maybe if I could get an internist to help me with this, I could figure out. I mean, not everybody can't have onco, right? But maybe they did. But of course, unfortunately, they still couldn't do any lab work or anything to help me figure out how to help these people with this horrible iritis. So Dr. Teresa Ganda, again, an amazing, amazing woman. She would do appendectomies under local. She would do vaginal hysterectomies under local. She would do hernia repairs under local. She just had a little oven on the back porch where she sterilized her instruments. And everything she did entirely free for the poor people that were there. She was the director of the Good Shepherd Clinic, and she cared for so many people. Just a wonderful, wonderful woman. But she wanted us to meet her brother. brother actually was Archbishop Ganda. He is like this bigger-than-life person. He was the first native Sierra Leonean priest, the first native Sierra Leone bishop, and the first native Sierra Leone archbishop. And we, of course, did befriend him. Just a great guy, really gruff, but just always would blow off bureaucracy and would blow off everything else and you just take care of the people, take care of the people. And so here we are with him. And when he found out that we had been working there on the at the Kissy Eye Hospital, and it was a Methodist compound, he goes, "Cathy, you are a Catholic woman. Why are you working with these Methodists?" With all due respect, Archbishop, I can't tell the difference in a Catholic cataract, a Methodist cataract, a Muslim cataract, or any other kind of cataract. If it's cataract, I'm going to take it out. And so he really wanted us to work more with Catholic missions, and he wanted us to go up to Sarabu and to have a temporary eye clinic. Well, we had not even been to Sarabu yet. We didn't know what it was or what it was like or anything like that. We didn't know what kind of resources that we might have there. So here we are working at Kissy, and then we start to borrow some of their things to do this, quote, temporary eye clinic. Well, we have to borrow everything because there's nothing in Sarabu at this point. So we borrow their microscope and we borrow everything we can get our hands on. We get this little tiny room and we try to do surgery in it. And of course, everything was difficult. We tried to sterilize instruments with this little thing. And then I'm looking at the post-op patients, and you can see the desperation in my face here as I'm trying to explain, they could get an infection. And I'm trying to get this across to the guy that's with the patient. And I turned to Mohammed, and those you have met, some of you have met Mohammed, our cataract surgeon. I said, "Mohammed, what do we do? We've done surgery on these people, and now there's no one in the village to take care of them." And he goes, "Doc, you have done your part. God will care for these people." Okay, well, kind of lost it on that one, didn't I? But he was right. None of those people lost sight. They all did better. So we got back to the Archbishop, and he said, "Okay, I want you to build a clinic in Sarabu." And I said, wait. There's no water. There's no electricity. There's not a clean place to do surgery. We don't have any instrumentation. We don't have anything. He goes, "The problem with you Americans is you have no faith in God. If you had faith in God, there would be an eye clinic in Sarabu, Sierra Leone." Well, it's pretty bad when the Archbishop pulls that faith card on you. I mean, Tom pulled the Catholic guilt card on me, and it worked. So I guess the bishop thought it was going to work there as well. So ultimately, in 2006 is when we did open the eye clinic, and I'll tell you more about just setting that up in just a minute. But Archbishop actually in 2010 retired to Sarabu, and here he is celebrating his 91st birthday with our last team. You can see Santi's up there. Unfortunately, he's in a coma right now. So please keep Archbishop in your prayers. We don't know if he'll still be alive when we get there or not. But because of this, Sierra Leone has really become our family. We go there because we love the people. We go there because we feel that God has called us to care for these people. And it's just been so amazing. It's been such a blessing to us. And we feel that we've been a blessing to them. And as I said, Sierra Leone is our family. So these two babies that I'm holding are Cathy and Tom, a set of twins. And the story behind them is that the mother of these kids initially was doing other things, but then decided to kind of join our team, ultimately got married, had these two little kids, and she's now our director of volunteers. So Mary has a group of women that just cooks. Mary has a group of women that just finds places for people to stay. And Mary has a group of women that tells them, okay, you're going Monday afternoon and you're going Tuesday morning or whatever. And she is so amazingly organized, and she's just such a great woman. And she does all of this with this amazing, beautiful love for the people, love for the Lord. And there's never anything that she can't do. It's just wonderful to watch her. We see lots of kids, lots and lots of kids. So this little girl we did surgery on, I think Santi had a special love for this one. And here's Tom with little Tom and Cathy. And then here we are with a bunch of the kids. Now, we feel like Sierra Leone is part of our, we feel like it's family to us. But this particular guy really wanted to be family. Okay, you talk. Talk to him.
Talk now. What's in the
I say, me, I go marry the doctor because I don't make I don't see. And I will put the ring in my hand. Then I will let God give long life, many years. Salute. Thank you, doctor.
So I got an engagement proposal, and he didn't even have to ask me a bunch of times. So anyway, so this guy asked me to marry him because he would say, keep me in Sierra Leone, and I would continue to take care of the people. So now we come into Sarabu. So we've worked our way down, and this is where Sarabu is. As I mentioned, we would fly into Lungi and then go across the bay to get into Freetown. And your options are to do the helicopter, which I think is the most fun but the most dangerous, to get on the ferry, which, as I said, everything was just so dark and it was almost eerie. But it's okay to do the ferry and then the speedboats, and so each time we do something different. But Sarabu's down here about 200 miles southeast of Freetown. The little star is where we've built the clinic. Sarabu is about 5,000 people. It's in the Bumpy Chiefdom and the Southern Province, which is why the bishop named this the Southern Eye Clinic, because we are in the Southern Province of the Bow District. This is, it's very poor living. These people live in these little mud brick houses with these thatch roofs on them. There's no water, there's no electricity, there's no plumbing, there's no pure drinking water, terrible roads, no education, minimal education. It's mostly Muslims and Christians. And as I mentioned, it was a British colony, so they do speak English, and then they speak Mende, and they always laugh at me when I try to speak Mende, so I don't try too much, but it's worth a try. And this is what it looks like. So the mud brick houses with the thatch roofs. And as I mentioned, those big thunderstorms oftentimes would blow these roofs away. So the winds can be very, very, very strong. Again, lots of kids. We probably do about 10% of the kids that of all the patients we do are kids. Lots of kids need surgery there, and they're also adorable. And here, the Muslims and the Christians actually pray together, usually in the morning before the clinic starts. They'll have a small devotion and pray together. And it's just so beautiful. It's sort of the way, I'm sure God looks down on this and smiles and just says, I wish everybody would be happy living together, regardless of what your background is or what your faith is or whatever. Just love one another. It's not that hard. It's really not that hard, except maybe if it's Tumblr. So that was a little hard. I got used to that eventually. But anyway, love one another. He calls us to this. But again, the children, they're just absolutely amazing. They're everywhere, and there's so many of them that need eye care. It's just surprising that we saw so many kids with cataracts. Of course, kids all have to work. This is sort of the major transportation, although most people walk. These little poto buses, they'll put everything on them, everything from strapping a goat on the back and 20 people inside, and it's just totally packed. But this is typical scene of any mission trip I've ever been on, which is the vehicle always breaks down. So you have to have somebody in the vehicle who knows how to fix the vehicle, because the vehicle will definitely break down. We did teach the kids how to do water balloons. That was a lot of fun. They'd never done anything like this, so just to have them play like kids was a lot of fun. They're all just so beautiful. And again, just so many of these kids end up needing to have eye surgery. That's one of our real deficits that we're working on right now. So we're going to move into the Southern Eye Clinic. Should we take a little break? No? Yes? Break? Want to take a little break?
Sure.
Okay, for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll talk about how we established the eye clinic, and what all the logistics were in setting it up, all the pros and cons and things we had to go through, and the fact that they wouldn't talk to me because I was a woman, they had to talk to Tom, and so, anyway, okay, so what, 5 minutes, something like that? Okay, 6 minutes, okay, great, whatever, go.
I'm on the general rotation, but I have to say, so.
Can I get you anything?
No, I'm good. Yeah, hot water, got.
Last night.
Yeah, well.
It's been quite interesting.
I remember.
So, have you gone to do some corner work here?
Well, we did.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, I was up there, yeah. Yeah, it's weird. No, 2018. So you're last night when I left myself,
It has.
Like until it was like a few days after the headset.
yeah, it's yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
I just feel like I fell out of sweat.
On the quasar.
I heard that you'd be here, that you.
Oh, yeah.